In the middle of human history, a massive experiment is unfolding, one that most people don't even realize they are part of, the modern debt system. Today, the entire world, through government borrowing, corporate obligations, household and individual loans, has reached a scale no civilization has ever borne. And yet these numbers are often discussed as if they were mere statistics detached from reality. Governments borrow trillions of dollars as if it were nothing. Central banks create money almost instantly with the press of a button. Families commit decades of their lives to mortgages as casually as buying groceries. Yet debt is still portrayed as a harmless, normal part of life. The truth is far darker. Debt generates power, enforces control, and acts as a ticking time bomb waiting for the right spark. The real question is not will a crisis occur, but when will it occur and who will bear the cost? To understand this, we need to look back at the roots of debt. Debt is as old as civilization itself. The earliest written records in Mesopotamia weren't poems or philosophical texts, they were ledgers. Lists of who owed what to whom, how much grain was borrowed, how many cattle changed hands. In early societies, debt was not just an economic tool, it was an essential part of social and sacred order. Priests and kings managed debts, collected what was owed, but when society approached collapse, they declared massive debt jubilees that erased obligations and restored balance. Think about that. Even thousands of years ago, the survival of society sometimes depended on resetting the financial system. Debt was power, but too much debt was dangerous. Ancient rulers understood something modern leaders often forget. You cannot enslave an entire population with obligations forever. At some point, the system breaks. As time passed, the Renaissance brought new players into the financial world. Families like the Medici and Florence turned banking into an art. Debt had evolved from grain and livestock to gold and credit. Kings, popes, and empires borrowed heavily to fund wars, grand buildings, and the expansion of power. But borrowing always carried risk. Even Spain, flush with silver from the New World, went bankrupt 4 times in the 16th century because ambition had outpaced reality. The first lesson is clear: even empires overflowing with gold can drown in debt. By the 20th century, debt had reached a scale unimaginable before. After World War I, nations carried burdens so heavy that repayment seemed impossible. Germany, saddled with reparations under the Treaty of Versailles, experienced crippling economic paralysis. Hyperinflation in the early 1920s, when people pushed wheelbarrows of money just to buy bread, was the direct result of debts that could not be met. This collapse set the stage for the next global catastrophe, World War II. In 1944, the Bretton Woods Conference created the modern financial architecture. The United States, holding 2/3 of the world's gold, designed a system in which the dollar was pegged to gold and all other currencies pegged to the dollar. Stability appeared to exist, but in reality, the entire world economy became dependent on U.S. financial discipline. By 1971, the pressure became too great. With growing expenses from the Vietnam War and domestic programs, the U.S. had printed more dollars than it had gold to back. Foreign governments demanded gold for their paper dollars. President Nixon closed the gold window, severing the last link. Debt, for the first time in history, became untethered from real assets. Governments could borrow and spend without constraint, limited only by trust. This quiet revolution is the starting point of today's financial system and its deepest vulnerabilities. From that moment on, the global economy became a game of leverage. When growth slowed, interest rates were lowered to encourage borrowing. When crises emerged, even more debt was created to patch the gaps. Each bailout grew bigger than the last, making the system ever more fragile. The 2008 financial crisis illustrates this perfectly. Mortgage loans were bundled into massive financial products, insured and leveraged up to 30 times. When one corner of this pyramid collapsed, the entire system shook. Banks faltered, pension funds evaporated, and governments injected trillions of dollars to prevent total collapse. The bitter irony: those who caused the crisis were saved, while ordinary citizens bore the costs through unemployment, foreclosures, and austerity. In the last 20 years, global debt has tripled, exceeding $300 trillion, nearly 4 times the size of the global economy. Some countries now carry public debt levels exceeding 200% of GDP. The U.S. adds trillions more each year, and developing economies struggle under foreign currency obligations. The entire system depends on the illusion that debt can grow indefinitely. Yet debt always demands a price. It distorts behavior, inflates asset bubbles, redistributes wealth, and chains future generations. History has shown us 3 possible endings for debt. It is either repaid honestly, inflated away, or defaulted upon. No empire or system has ever escaped this truth. Today, governments rarely ask you for cash when they run deficits. They borrow on your behalf. When you swipe a credit card, you aren't paying, you're borrowing. When companies report record profits, often that success is fueled by debt-financed stock buybacks. The U.S. national debt has surpassed $34 trillion. Interest payments alone rival the defense budget. Across Europe, countries like Italy and Greece carry enormous debt, while in China, local governments and state-owned enterprises hide mounting liabilities. Debt has metastasized everywhere. Debt is also politically seductive. Raising taxes angers voters. Cutting spending sparks backlash. Borrowing seems invisible until interest rates rise. That's exactly what happened after 2022, when the true weight of debt finally became visible. Yet debt is still sold as a path to prosperity. Students are encouraged to take on massive loans for uncertain returns. Families are pushed to stretch for homes they can barely afford. Nations are told, deficits don't matter. We can print money. This is the great illusion of modern finance. Debt is not free, limitless, or riskless. So, what comes next? History points to 3 paths: inflation, restructuring, or default. The signs suggest that governments prefer inflation, the quietest way to reduce debt's real value. Who pays the price? The people, their savings, wages, and future purchasing power. Debt is not just an economic issue, it's a power issue. Who lends, who borrows, who gets rescued? Every crisis answers these questions. The powerful are protected and ordinary people suffer. Understanding debt is therefore not just financial education, it's survival. History repeats itself. Debt grows, leaders deny, crises erupt, and societies reset. The only choice you have is whether to enter this cycle blind or awake. If this has given you a new perspective, subscribe. History has already written the answers. I'll show you where to look.